Joining me today on the Retail Pilot is Mike Natenshon, the CEO and co-founder of MarineLayer. Mike, it's good to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you too. How's it going?
It's going. It's going. I mean, I'm on the East Coast, you're on the West Coast. I'm glad we could find a time to connect. Tell us a little bit about what led you to launching MarineLayer.
I was thinking about that. I never thought I was going to be in apparel. I always laugh about that with Adam, my business partner and my best friend from growing up. I studied economics in school and went to work in finance like everybody. I just thought that's the track you're supposed to do. But I did have some like traits in my personality that I think were pretty, I was stubborn and curious and pretty good at like hustling. I never used to do my homework very early in the day. It was always right before class, but I could do those things pretty well, and they maybe just sort of presaged an entrepreneurial career or something.
I had the same mantra: if it wasn't for the last minute, things wouldn't get done. I mean, that kind of got me through school.
Yeah. There's a good motivator there. So, I think that I had that in me, and then I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was back in business school, and I sort of decided that I didn't want to do something in finance. I had more creative inklings, and my girlfriend at the time, who then became my wife, was very tired of some of these old T-shirts that I had from college that were just kind of beat up and, in her mind, and rightfully so, a little bit ratty. And she was like, "You got to get some new T-shirts," and I was like, "I can't find ones that are this soft and that fit just right." I had that stack of 100 shirts and 5 that I wore because they fit and felt just right. But she was pretty adamant. She was like, "It's me or the shirt." So she won that battle, and I just was like, "All right, I can't find a shirt that I really like. Why don't I just make one?" I felt like there was some sort of shared experience. You socialize these things. Like when you have an idea, you sort of like complain to other people, or you're like, "Oh, I can't find shirt." There was enough sort of validation in that where people were like, "Yeah, I could, I got a million shirts and only a few of them I really like." So there was something in that. And I just went down to LA and started learning about pattern making and fabric and textiles. And I didn't realize how difficult it was to actually make something unique. You could, at the time, it was very easy to buy an American Apparel blank shirt and screen print something on it, but to actually, create your own pattern and create your own fabric and do anything, custom manufacturing was really, even something like a T-shirt was really challenging. But that was kind of a blessing as well. The difficulty of it, I think, was what allowed us to, fighting through that difficulty was allow us to create something that was unique in the market. So made this small run of T-shirts that really did feel kind of different and fit differently.
And at this time, did you have the name MarineLayer picked out? Were you partnering with Adam? And put a timestamp on this for us.
I was, Adam is my best friend from growing up. We've known we started going to school together in 5th grade. So we've just always been, close. And he was kind of like a thought partner to me as I was doing it, just sort of chatting on the side and things like that. And, but he didn't officially join me until sort of one of the other kind of key turning points in our evolution, which I can talk about in a minute. But, at the time we were living in San Francisco and just sort of we had moved out from the East Coast and kind of loving this West Coast active urban lifestyle. So that's the genesis of the name MarineLayer was, what people sort of refer to as the fog in San Francisco. And, just felt kind of like a cool inside reference to this place that we really loved. And the clothes were all sort of designed for this California lifestyle, right? Like we weren't making, pink Nantucket red pants and, crisp button up, things like that from Yes. Yeah.
That'd be the Vineyard Vines guys. Good.
So yeah, exactly. I mean, nothing, we always laugh when we look back at like pictures of us in, high school or junior high school. Like they were, I don't think we were like the coolest kids on campus, but we were, like buttoned up shirts and a little preppier than we are now.
So this is what year did the company actually start? And then you mentioned there were some transitions or keys to building out the business. Take us from that forward.
So I was in business school and just, I thought business school was going to be this great experience where I'd get all this help starting a company, and Berkeley was kind of tailored for a more like tech focused experience. So when I was like approaching professors and I was like, hey, I have an idea about a t-shirt company, they were like, all right, I'll, don't call me, I'll call you. But that was like 2010. And so I just started kind of on the side learning about fabrics. And it took me about a year of kind of product development, going down to LA, learning about patterns and things like that to make the first batch of shirts. And at the time, Bonobos had just gotten started and they were sort of the model. We were like, they were going to be a cool brand, I think, especially in the early days. They had those pants with the pockets, and they I think they maybe changed a little bit over the years, but at the beginning they really had this distinctive brand, and they were trying to be, they were going to be like the Zappos of the world. Like everything was going to be online. And so we sort of were following that model. And I put up a website, and the whole plan was like, all right, we're going to offer all these extra sizes, and really, the whole thing is like, we want to be able to get you like your favorite t-shirt right out of the box, right? Not you have to wash it 20 times so it breaks in, or you have to just sort of roll the dice and you're going to buy 10 and one of them is going to fit just right. Like we tried to make your sort of favorite shirt right away. And we thought we'd sell it online. And so that gets us, website launched in like 2011, something like that. And I was in my apartment at the time with my girlfriend, and we were sort of selling it. Would see people and they'd be like, oh yeah, this looks really cool. And, people would be sort of like intrigued, but we didn't have any money. We weren't getting much traction online. It was this sort of like, we developed this incredible fabric, and you couldn't, especially back then, like there's all these tools now where you can really, I think, convey a product so clearly online right now through video and testimonials and photography. 14 years ago, it was not like that. So there wasn't the same trust purchasing online. So we were sending people fabric swatches and things like that, trying to get them, but it just was like, we're just kind of like teetering along. And so at the time, the retail market was in the tank. This was, there was just a lot of vacancies. And so I had been talking to Adam, and
this is post the 2008, 2009 crash, when really retail, along with many other things, went right down the drain.
Exactly. And that was, it was kind of funny. It was just like, people are like, you're starting a t-shirt company in the middle of a recession, like, good luck. But that created some interesting opportunities. Just there were some vacancies. Chestnut Street, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's a great retail street in San Francisco. There was this little 500 square foot former hair salon that had been vacant for a long time. And we kind of like, in sort of an entrepreneurial way, BS'd our way into it. We were like, oh yeah, we're interested in a retail store, which was totally untrue at the time. Like I had been funding this thing with my credit card, and Adam had another job, and it was just like, we thought we'd do it for a couple of weeks to get some email addresses, right? Like we thought it'd be a good sort of pop-up shop, but we had to kind of suggest that we were going to do a store. So anyways, Adam, as my good friend, I think he was sort of interested in the idea, was just like helping me on the side. So we put this little pop-up shop on 500 square feet. And we literally were selling like 2 t-shirts, a red t-shirt and a blue t-shirt, and 2 polos. But we made the store look kind of cool, and we were working in it. And that retail experience was this real turning point for us, because it was incredibly successful. Like people came in and they could understand the vibe of the brand. They could feel the product, they could try it. And we sold way more shirts than we had at any point online. And so, it was kind of this turning point where I was like, one, Adam, do you want to come, sort of join full time? Like, I think this is something that could happen. And also, do you want to co-sign your life away on this long-term lease? And amazingly, he said yes on both of them. And we actually did end up leasing out that little store on Chestnut, and it was profitable since month 1. And that really put us on a different path. I would say like more typical startup path is either raise a bunch of VC money and then try and build out a fancy website and, acquire customers through that way, or a more traditional apparel one. You're working with wholesale because you are, lower CapEx to get it off the ground, but less control over the brand. And, you're not controlling your distribution. So
yeah,
we felt like this was a great
fully unique in the sense that you were doing more business in stores than you are online, even though online at the time was probably the intent, but
Yeah,
the store thing really popped the business and created the momentum for you.
totally. I mean, just the lesson was we made a shitty business plan, but we pivoted. I think and that was one of the early things that I picked up some advice along the way that I thought was really helpful was just like, make small mistakes, right? And you're not you don't know what's ahead of you, but I think we sort of took this like incremental approach to trying things with the right sort of risk profile, and we were okay going into things that we didn't know about. We didn't, that even though that was a big risk signing that lease, it was a measured approach, right? Like we had done a trial test and we'd seen some data points, and it wasn't enough. You never get the signals like so clearly, like, oh yeah, this is going to be incredibly profitable. You just get sort of inklings of it or suggestions that this could be something. So
It's interesting. So you guys start the business, you have a finance background, developing this passion for product. Adam, and I know Adam fairly well. We've met a few times. He's got a strong operational sense.
yeah,
And today he is your COO,
yeah.
correct? Who's the creative genius behind this? I mean, where's the third leg of the stool? How does that come into play?
I think I was always over product and brand. So, the that's the stuff that I liked doing and was really passionate about the product and the brand. And I think those two things work together, and it's much more about sort of the emotion and the experience and Adam is a great business operator, and we always had a good yin and yang sort of ability where I think it wasn't like we were diametrically opposed and he
Hmm.
did this stuff and I did this and we never interacted. We could kind of play different sides, but we did have pretty clear roles. So I was working on the creative and he was, figuring out how to keep the lights on and make great product and expand our retail footprint. And, there's a lot of execution work in a retail or an apparel business. So
So take
we
us
work
forward to
together.
where you are today, where MarineLayer is today, size of the business in terms of sales and stores and distribution model.
Yeah. I think we got like 48 stores right now. We're opening up our 49th in Williamsburg in, I don't know, a month. It's always a little bit. I hesitate to give the exact date because it moves around a little bit, but
Yeah, New York's tricky.
yep, it is. There's always surprises at the end, but yeah, we got 49 doors, and again, that was really influenced by kind of that first store and this idea that, all right, our stores can be profitable and kind of marketing. We had this idea that we want to be on the 20 coolest streets in the country, and that's how we want people to discover us. So we didn't just expand all in San Francisco and then move sort of methodically. We opened up on Abbot Kinney in Venice, down in LA. We were on Bleecker Street in New York and Prince Street in Nolita, and Newbury Street in Boston. We were just sort of just trying to find South Congress in Austin, just all these places where
Great
you
locations.
yeah, where great locations for discovery too. Like good traffic, but also people shopping not necessarily with a purpose. Not like, all right, I need this suit for a wedding. I want to discover a new brand. So
For, for
that was kind of the retail strategy.
for companies that are rolling out stores, one challenge I would see with that is just how you manage the stores. Generally you have a district manager or a regional manager and stores are clustered. But here it looks like your strategy was go after the best neighborhoods, the best streets, and then we'll figure out how to have the infrastructure to support it.
Yeah, that was you identified a good problem that was.
A lot of travel for a district manager who's covering 5 states and
Yeah,
5 stores.
I think we were scrappy. So we built out stores cheaply and had people that really loved working with us and still do. Like I think that's our turnover in the retail fleet is very low. compared to industry averages. And that really went a long way because we couldn't, we didn't have this sort of like gotcha culture where we were doing surprise visits all the time and, all these layers of oversight. We really had to trust our head of retail and the people that they were hiring. And it just kind of cascades down. We hired this great head of retail. I remember she from Craigslist, like we had 2 stores in San Francisco, and she applied to the Hayes Valley one and walked in and just kind of, how you can sense sometimes when you get a good person. She was like, we're like, oh, great, you're applying for the Hayes. She's like, no, I'm applying to be your manager for both your stores. And she just was kind of like, I was like, all right, tell us what, she just kind of walked in there and told us what she wanted.
What does she know that?
Yeah. But just, and that's, I think you're looking for people that aren't going to ask for permission, that are going to sort of go after what they want. And she, really loved the brand, and she ended up, being our national head of retail for 8 years or something like that. So that culture and scrappiness, I think, allowed us to kind of operate a very disparate group of store locations.
Rolling out stores is not a cheap endeavor. As you mentioned, there's no matter how inexpensively you build out stores, there's still CapEx involved. There's obviously financial risk, signing leases. How did you, or who did you pick to be your financial partners, and how did you go about identifying them?
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny. In the beginning, you could do it if you're doing everything. Adam and I built out the first store. It was like $6,000. Like it wasn't, we have all these funny pictures of me trying to work a floor sander, and that was not one of my core competencies. But we got it open, and the costs have sort of escalated from there, obviously. But originally, we took on some friends and family money. I think that was just we wanted to be scrappy. We didn't want to take too much money. I always felt like there was a speed with which you can build a brand, and you can't rush that too quickly. Can't remember the name of the company, but the Lululemon founder started another brand that I think has since closed. I'm blanking on the name, but they were like coming up at the same time.
I think it was Kitten Ace.
Yes, Kitten Ace. Good. Glad our collective memories.
Here we go.
Are enough for that, but they were opening like 20 doors a year, and we were just being sort of methodical about it. We were like, how can you make good decisions at this speed? And there's just it just felt kind of antithetical to our goals of building a long-term brand. And so we felt like we needed some capital, but not a crazy amount. So we were working with friends and family, and it's a story that people could understand. And we felt like there was a clear, the first couple stores that we opened were really good investments. They were cash flowing right away. So there was a clear kind of path to profitability.
And profitability sounds like from the beginning was first and foremost.
Yeah.
Some of the others that we know that were out there in the D2C world that were growing rapidly with venture money behind it, and profitability would eventually happen.
Yep. So, I think we were just trying to balance that piece where we wanted to invest in long-term things, right? And it is, to some of your earlier comments, like we needed some investment capital to roll out stores, to do it across these locations, and to, our production costs were astronomically high early on. And so you're trying, we didn't want to artificially have, sell $75 t-shirts because they cost so much to make, when we knew that there was a path at some scale to that. So I don't know, that's a long-winded way of saying we started off with friends and family, and then we did later take an institutional investor, and as we were sort of trying to, ramp up stores even more. And they were a very small private equity group, but really insights into the customer. And we felt like, you got to choose your partners carefully, especially in the finance realm. And we wanted someone that really understood brand well, and could help us in areas where we weren't necessarily rock solid. And so.
And you're referencing Provenance Digital.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. There's Anthony runs a great shop, as you may know. I'm an advisor to them, and I don't think I've met a team that gets into the customer, the long-term value of a customer, the data surrounding the customer as much as they do. I mean, they're really passionate about it. They're smart and thoughtful in terms of who they invest in and how they support a team. I've been super impressed with them.
Yep. Yeah, we have as well. And, I think that stuff comes out in the process. Every financial partner says that they all have sort of the same spiel where they want to be your long-term partner, but I think actions speak louder than words. And these guys just had a differentiating point where we were small when they invested in us, I don't know, 30 million in sales, too small for a big private equity firm that
Right.
is looking to just kind of lever things up and get some operating efficiency. They were able to look at our customer data and extrapolate forward. And I think, they seem happy. We're happy. It's worked out well so far.
Where's the brand today? What kind of volume are you doing in sales? And is it all direct to consumer, or is there any wholesale?
So, we'll finish up the year somewhere between 150 and 200 million in sales. Not that big of a range, but we still got 4 months left, and the holiday is the biggest part of the year. So, and before the pandemic, we were 60% retail, 40% direct. In terms of our non-wholesale business, that has flipped. And so now of our own DTC business, we're 60% web and 40% retail. We really like that balance. And then our wholesale channel now is about, I think, 10, 15% of sales, somewhere around there.
Of total.
Yeah.
Do you see that as an opportunity to grow into the
Yeah, for sure.
wholesale space more? Is there, as you look over the next 24 months, how do you see the contribution of stores, online, and wholesale changing?
Hopefully it doesn't change, but I think we can grow all three. And I feel like that was the value for us to being on omni-channel was that we never had to lean too hard on one distribution channel. Because I think that's where we're just trying to find our customer. We're trying to get the right people that really connect with the brand. And, we're always trying to meet them where they are, right? There's a million great little cities and towns that we can't open stores. We can't open a store in Aspen or, Rye, New York, or wherever, a lot of these places where there's like really great specialty retailers. So wholesale partners are great for that, and we have really good specialty independent store partners there. We have a lot of retail that's always going to be a part of our business because I think good retail is alive and well. Experiential retail where people actually enjoy that. And, we have a busy, time-starved customer. So obviously online is a huge part of that as well. So we like having all three of those distribution channels and not being overly dependent. If we had just online and we were trying to grow at a certain speed, then you're paying, you're relying on paid social more, and then your
It's
quality of your customer is going down as you move
look,
down the waterfall.
a company your size, I think you have opportunities, as you said, to grow all three channels. Layer onto that international. How does that enter into the equation for you?
It's always tempting. My head of product and I we go to Europe a couple times a year for, there's some good trade shows there, and just on the product side, it's important. And, we see a couple little American stores in Paris and London, and it's fun to think about that. And we'll definitely do it at some point. It's just
When
the logistical challenges there.
it's tough. I know international retail well. There's plenty of retail to be had in this country, and then you can go to that state above us called Canada. If there are any
Yep.
Canadians listening, I'm sorry I just said that, but anyway, it's very friendly to U.S. retail, and certainly the first place I would go abroad before going across the pond.
Yep. And that's, I think we're 100% agree. And that's still filled with some, logistical challenges, right? And it's just,
Yeah, Montreal is a different country altogether.
yeah.
So I would do that last when you start Canada. Montreal has its own set of French Canadian rules that are tricky.
Yep.
One thing that I've noticed, your women's business is very much an integral part of the brand. Can you
Yeah.
give us a breakout of what percent is women's to men's?
Yeah. It's about 50-50, which I think people are surprised about, but
But I think also, when I look out there at the competitive set, when I look at whether it's Faraday or could be a Buck Mason or maybe it's a Roan, to some degree, J. Crew, but less. Most of those businesses are much heavier in men's. And I
yeah.
think that having the women's contribution be 50% in that area is really important because we all know she shops more than he does.
Yeah.
And I
We
think that
actually have about 55% of our customers are women. So even though the split is more like 50-50, we have more female shoppers.
And I guess it also shows that guys can go in and put it together for themselves as well. It's not a brand that's hard for someone to stylize or pull together a look, and they need their girlfriend or their significant other to do that for them. They can go in and shop for themselves too. I
Yeah.
love the product. I really I think you guys do a great job mixing it up in the stores, and the stores just feel so familiar when you walk in. It's like almost like it's a room in your home with product that's laid out. It's very comfortable. It's very casual. And I like the fact that the stores are small. I think that the
Yeah.
intimacy of the way the stores are laid out is very important. Big stores are just not as interesting. And I also think that they don't put enough pressure on a company to be a merchant and pull things together because every inch counts in a small store
Yep.
versus 5,000 square feet. You can start doing some things in a way that really don't speak to the customer or are all that interesting.
Yep. Totally. Yeah. And it's, we learned that lesson early on, I think just more, and it wasn't like somebody told us, we just didn't want to spend, when you're an operator, you think about gross rent, right? Like it's not the per square foot that matters. It's the rent check that we're writing every month. And I think, maybe it was a fortuitous lesson opening up on 500 square feet and seeing that we can do, that store was doing like $1.2 million or something like that
Wow.
when we left. And, that's not, I wish we could just extrapolate from there.
Sure.
All those, that
Everybody
per
would like
square.
everyone would like to do $2,000 a foot. I'll
Yeah.
take that all day long as a retailer. Let's talk a little bit about a couple of other things that are going on in the brand that I find interesting. Respun. Tell us
Yeah.
about Respun. I find that fascinating.
Yeah. So Respun is our upcycling program. Basically, the TLDR is that we collect a bunch of old T-shirts that people can't resell, or we're sort of the bottom part of the food chain. That's like you got a whole bunch of old charity marathon T-shirts and stuff like that you can't really put on the reel. That kind of stuff. There's really it's really difficult to find a good place to recycle those or upcycle them. So
It's a good thing, Mike, because your girlfriend would have taken everything you'd owned at the time, not just your favorite T-shirt, but perhaps your closet.
yeah, no, the whole thing would have been Respun. But yeah, I think I've always been, learning kind of like how the sausage is made, and going to the factories, you see where there's fabric waste, and you just see, you see behind the curtain a little bit. And so there was I don't know, just a sense of responsibility and problem solving that I was kind of trying to think about, like, what do we, there's good stuff here. What do we do with it? And I remember our first, attempts to recycle product. We were like taking all these like squares of fabric and we were trying to turn them into these like T-shirt bags, and they were just like the ugliest things in the world, so we weren't able to, when we were smaller, we weren't able to really effectively come up with a good recycling strategy. But, this is one of these cool things where some opportunities actually opened up to us as we got bigger. And there's a process of recycling now where if you can sort T-shirts by color, you can mechanically actually recycle the fabric. So essentially you take all of the blue T-shirts. If you can get 10,000 blue T-shirts, I can recycle them because you could sort of chop up the yarn and then retwist the fibers into a new, and clean them and twist it into a new yarn. So that's
What
this process that we're doing. And we've collected like 1 million shirts or something like that, almost 1 million shirts from our customers. And
So what is the program for the customer? I mean, how do I have some t-shirts at home and I want to be part of Respun. What does that look like for me? What do I have to do? Does it cost me something? Do I get something?
yeah, now, so we've expanded our program now where you can give more than just t-shirts. Essentially, we having worked on this program now, we can really find the greatest and best use for most of the crap in your closet, for lack of a better word. Some of it we can upcycle, some of it we can give to resale partners, the stuff that's can't be done, you can turn it into insulation, but we have that ability now, and our sorting partners can help with that. So right now, for $20, you can get this big giant recycling bag, and we'll send it to you. Then you mail it back to us. The shipping's paid, and then you get a $40 credit at MarineLayer. So it's advantageous to you, and I think part of what the success has been for our customer is like a responsible way to clean out your closet, right? I think that's
I love that.
an easy way to do it. And again, I think if you have a really nice, if you got your wife a really nice bag or something like that, and they want to, or you have a cool watch, there's a resale market for that, right? Or a repair market for a nice, one of our puffers or something like that, or a Patagonia puffer. But for t-shirts and jersey and stuff like that, it doesn't make sort of economic sense for people to do that. And I don't think people really know where to get rid of that stuff. So I think we've filled a nice hole in the market in terms of providing a service for our customers that they can
Super
feel good
cool.
about.
Take us through where you are today with marketing. There's so many different ways to reach the consumer. Many of those are digital and they're expensive. What's working at MarineLayer?
We do some paid social, advertising on Instagram and TikTok, and catalog. Those are our big, in stores. I mean, in some ways, stores are a marketing customer acquisition vehicle. Those are the big ones. Catalog has always been something, I think, after, when everybody was sort of zigging and we zagged with the retail, it was sort of like the next kind of thing that was surprising was, all right, we should do people weren't doing catalogs that much. Modern contemporary brands weren't doing a lot of catalogs, and it's hard. It requires a lot of photo investment and content creation. So it was it was an investment up front, but I just remember, and I still do it, right? Like, it's like I delete 50 emails every morning, and, I'm not giving a lot of mind share to my inbox. So I was just trying to think, how do we get in front of the customer and kind of tell our lifestyle story and show off more of the product. And I always felt like, yeah, if you do a good catalog, people will still read it. Again, I think J. Crew was a great example. They did a great catalog, and just felt like people wanted that, I don't know, respite from the digital world. So that's been an important marketing and customer communication channel for us for forever. I don't know, 10 years now or something like that.
Have you moved from or added to your social media TikTok?
Yeah, not personally. Like, I don't, my kids like TikTok more than I do. It's still, I'm working on, I feel like a lot of people in our world and are like experimenting with TikTok, as opposed to using it just as their sort of one of those 5 apps every day that they're kind of going for as a, way to relax. But it's interesting, and it's I think our brand has some personality, and we don't take ourselves too seriously. So there's like an irreverence that has work. Instagram is more carefully curated. TikTok is less curated. But you can have fun with it, and we have a great social media person who's doing all sorts of fun stuff, and we've had some really good viral content on there, and it's been an interesting, still nascent acquisition channel for us, but I think if you have a brand and you have a personality, it's a good medium. So we've been pleasantly surprised.
Have you dabbled with connected TV at all?
We did. TV's still really expensive, and it's kind of a blunt instrument. If you're really if you're selling razor blades every guy in the world needs to shave, or not Adam, he shaves like once every month, still, but most guys need to shave more frequently. And so then if you're hitting a really high percentage of the audience, I think TV works in a more mass market way. We're still a lifestyle brand, and not, I think, appreciate and enjoy the ability to target specific audiences a little bit more on paid social and catalog. So we did a couple, that was a long-winded way of saying we've done a couple like lifestyle spots. And they were fun. They were just like, we had one last summer where it was just one of our friends and models was just sleeping in one of our swimsuits on a floaty in a pool. It was just, there was some good music to it. And, it was a brand spot. It was just, it was sort of, but that was very expensive, and I think, TV is still really geared towards big, car companies and big CPG companies. And so connected TV, I think, is democratizing that a little bit, but it's still not our primary area of focus.
Shifting gears, technology. What have been some of the investments you've made over the past couple of years that you're excited about, and what are you looking to invest in going forward?
I think the biggest one for us is endless aisle, bringing one inventory to stores and web. Pretty straightforward in principle and complex to execute. But, this idea of really meeting our customer where they are is super important for us. And, having 50 points of distribution is an inventory challenge, right? But being able to sell that product online is really important. And, being able to offer our customers in store, if they buy 2 t-shirts in store and they want one more for their wife or something like that, or, a pair of pants in tall that we don't offer in their store, we can do that in the same transaction. So we call that endless aisle, but essentially just, one, being able to share inventory across channels was a huge lift, and that's all Adam and his team. But I think that's really, in terms of, if you're thinking about customer experience and inventory management, those are really big things for us, and that's helped a lot. So
yeah, I think the customer experience in the store needs to be really easy based on what they want and where it is in your inventory. It all has to come together in a transaction. It can't be done through multiple transactions because no one's that patient as a customer to wait for.
No, totally. It's a fine line, right? Like, you can't overcomplicate. Part of, I think, what's nice about retail is the ease of the experience. So we're always thinking about sort of checkout speed and making sure it's not too complicated.
And with AI being all that it is today, how are you using it, or where are you looking to use it in the business?
So funny. I mean, I think AI is a buzzword of something that sounds new, but it's really just, I feel like, more like complex machine learning. And that is I feel like where it can help our business is really around, enhancing customer analytics and predictive product merchandising, trying to understand and analytics, right? Like, looking, it's very hard for us. That's why we have merchants, right? Like, you look at sales and you get a read on things, but there are a lot of different variables. You can see 2 blue shirts and one can sell well and one might not, but who knows where it was positioned in the store, right? Who knows if the fabric felt the exact same, or, if it landed a little bit late. There's just a lot of variables. So I think from an analytics standpoint and a predictive product merchandising area, we see a lot of companies that are starting to offer some interesting tools there that we're looking at. So
I'm sure you're probably looking at also on the customer service side, where there are a lot of chatbots that can answer questions and locate your packages and advise you on where your orders are. I'm seeing a lot of companies adopt platforms in that area.
Yeah, although I was on a work trip recently, and I was staying in a nice hotel, and they had what I thought was a customer service agent, that was offering to be like a concierge, and they were like, "All right, where?" I was like, "What? Can you help me with a restaurant reservation, and they were like, "Oh, sure, sir, we're happy to help you. There's two spots. I was in Palm Springs for the day, and they were like, this new restaurant is one of the hottest spots in the valley. It's farm to table at its best." And so I was like, "All right, can you make us a reservation?" And they did, and pulled in, and it was the bottom floor of a retirement community. There was like this guy in a stretcher walking in a walker passing us by, and so I think there's still some kinks, and it turns out, I'm pretty sure it was just some sort of AI chatbot. But so we're excited about the potential of that. There's still some, we're still using real people and helping out with that customer experience.
With your career so far, who's been your mentor, or do you have a go-to person that's helped you understand more about retail as you came at this business without a retail background?
We have a good board, and I think just a good thought. My leadership team here is filled with really great head of product and great head of marketing, and Adam and head of merchandising. So I really lean on our leadership team a lot as thought partners, and it's a lot of I think there's so many different brands out there. You mentioned all those competitors. They're all trying to hit a different target than we are, even the closest ones. And so I think there's a lot of triangulation that has to happen, right? Like there's nobody out there that can just tell me, "Hey, this is what you have to do," right? Because, even if there is a California lifestyle brand that did it 15 or 20 years ago, right? Like our distribution is different now, right? So it's like what maybe worked for them is not going to work for us, or maybe the customer mix of men's and women's is not, or the product mix, or, there's a lot of California brands, right? Like Jenny Kane and James Purse are both California brands. They have a different, we're more driven, sort of inspired by emotional color and nostalgia. So what works for them isn't necessarily going to work for us. So I just, I think it's just, we try and take bits and pieces of other brands and, other people. I wish there was one person that could just kind of tell me what to do, but it wouldn't be as fun.
What do you find to be your greatest challenge as a leader?
I think, we talked about this when we were like four people. We were sort of upstairs in the Chestnut store, and we had two or three people working for us in retail, and they were just the best. And it was a small team, and everybody was working so hard, and they loved it, and we weren't getting paid very much, but we were happy. And we were like, how do we protect this if we keep growing? How do you do this? And we just kind of made this like pact that we're just like, and I remember, I don't know where we saw it, but it was just like somebody saw some note, and it was just like, the one thing I learned about brand is like, don't fuck up the culture. And I think that was, a very simple statement, but something we really held on to. And, as you get bigger, there are different logistical processes that we have to deal with, and like stupid technical, I don't know. There's just minutia that can kind of sort of sap your energy to go to work every day. But I think we've been really, I'm sort of laser focused on protecting kind of this fun, work hard culture. We still have people that are great hustlers and really care very deeply about the brand. And I think, maybe another way to say it is like, we still have tons of headaches every day to deal with. I'm really focused on bringing in great people that like working with each other every day and are, care very much about the brand and are hustling. So
MarineLayer, are you a hybrid company, or are people working primarily at the office?
We're a hybrid. Before the pandemic, I thought I was like, we're never going to work from home. It's just, we're tangible product. Collaboration is incredibly important to us. Culture is important to us. And then it was just, they're like, "Oh, well, you don't have a choice. Our office is closed," and so in some ways it was an interesting forcing function that showed us, all right, you can work remotely. Realize that has its own drawbacks, and we've ultimately evolved into a really nice hybrid model. So we're 3 days a week in the office, and as long as we can succeed as a company, I think we're going to keep doing that. we started off at 2 and then we went to 3 days. I think that's been a good thing for our business. Just, there's only so many meetings that you can compress into 2 days, and some of these like harder to measure things around people development, just the impromptu conversations around collaboration and professional development for a lot of our young team members, that's important to be in person. So we feel like 3 days is we're able to do a lot of that and still protect some lifestyle benefits. It's like I like having a day at home to catch up on some work and go for a jog at lunch or whatever it is. So
Are you a runner? Is that your guilty pleasure?
maybe you just called me out a little bit too much on that. Adam's a better runner than I am. I like to play tennis and go surfing, but
You playing any padel?
I'd like to. I've heard about it. It sounds like a fun game.
I'm addicted to it. It's the only sport now that I play.
Oh, cool. Is
It's
it
a
where?
transition to tennis and done. Can't get enough.
Yeah, I played once. It looked in just messing around, but it looks fun. I think cooler than pickleball.
It's awesome. Much cooler than pickleball. All right, let's wrap up with rapid fire. You ready?
Yeah,
All right. Favorite stream show?
the Bear. Really like that these days.
If you have to choose, would you be a rock star or a pro athlete?
Pro athlete.
Favorite vacation destination?
I just got back from Portugal for a week, and that was pretty cool. So I'd like to go back.
Top of mind. Okay. If you could pick the perfect collaboration, who would it be with?
Whoa. We have a couple that we're really excited about that are probably our favorites. So I don't want to reveal those too
Not
soon.
yet.
Yeah, but we're thinking about collaborations a little bit differently, where not necessarily brand mashups, but like we love like nostalgic things, and we're sort of thinking about it in a different way. Where my head of product and we were like, oh, we should do something fun with like Bain de Soleil. Remember that old like suntan lotion? Like not a typical thing, but something fun like that, or work with like we're Aperol or something like that. Like just kind of like thinking about sort of lifestyle, non-apparel things that would be cool to.
Cool. Who would you most like to meet?
In our business?
Anywhere. Any one person you could have lunch with, hang out with, find out something.
Since we're talking about work stuff now, I think Mickey Drexler would be cool. He seems to be able to read the tea leaves of apparel merchandising better than anybody. So that'd be a fun one.
I'll put that together for you today.
All right.
Last question. Favorite MarineLayer item?
That one's easy. I have this t-shirt. It was the second t-shirt we made, but I've worn it for the births of both of my daughters. So it's my lucky t-shirt. It's just, it's approaching its, the end of its life, because it's 12 years old and I've worn it 250 times. So now I really only wear it for very special occasions, but got me through 2 childbirths. I was just watching, obviously, but my kids turned out pretty well. So
you have to make sure your wife doesn't throw that one out, or you'll be starting another company.
Yeah, exactly.
And with that, we will land this flight of the Retail Pilot. Mike, so great to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, great to be here. It was fun talking about it.